Manishma Anashim Mishpoka Shalom Yehudim Ma Shalom Ha Ma Shalom Ka. I greet you all this Yom to all the Ma'it house of Israel, all the Goyim coming out of paganism, all the Garim feeling alienated now, but now being grafted in to the Bayit Israel. Shalom, Shalim. Welcome to the Eliyahu channel. Thank you for tuning in for this marvelous part 2, this wonderful part we're doing, comparing Shemot, chapter 1, 1, all the way to 6:1, and with Sefer Yasher. Yes, it's taken us 3 parts to finish just to get up to the part of Perek 6, Pasuk 1. And this is going to be part 3 of that, and comparing a Moshe story, powerful story. And we're going to go on and further into Shemot until the end of completion of Yasher, as each parashat matches, so we can see the parashat in the particular storyline with more details of Shemot. Hallelujah. Praise Yah. Well, I just praise Yahweh, Abiyah, for this great opportunity. Remember, we are guarding the Torah. We are guarding the Torah. We are guarding his covenant of his Torah, of all forms of the teaching of Torah. And we just are protectors of righteousness. And reading the Sefer Yasher, the scroll of the upright, straight and narrow, really, how should I say, provoke us to tov works of wanting to walk Kodesh, Kodeshim, Zadik, anointed walk in the Shem of Yahuwah. Hallelujah. Praise Yah. Remember, we use what we call the Shemitic Paleo Ketav Ibrit of Abba Yah's Shem, of Yahuwah, and we just thank Abba for the opportunity of using the Shemitic phonetic sounds in order to sound his Shem as Yahuwah. Hallelujah. Praise Yah. And we do not use the Catholic, Apostolic, Roman, Greco-pagan words, that some of them are pagan rituals, some of them are pagan deities, and it says in Torah not to mention the name of other mighty ones, only to put them down or to point to its direction of its sin and its wrongdoing in the land of Israel. That's why the deities of Baal and the deities of Dagon, the deities of all the different deities, as well as the God of fortune and fame, is mentioned as good also, and they say God, and some phonetic sound charts. So we don't use these particular Catholic, Latin, Greek words because we are into correcting ourselves. We are correcting our tongues and replacing the pagan words with the correct words, reversing the curse and bringing back to the way it's supposed to be originally. Hallelujah. Praise Yah. Well, welcome for this great opportunity to come into your home. It's great. My name is Eliyahu, and if you just for the first time have reached the Eliyahu channel, I just greet you with the Shem of Abaya to cover you and shadow you, and may his Shamamim open up with the windows of his Berekot and Berekat, and that your mind and your Nefesh and your Lab would open up with his Ruach Kadosh to flow in and receive the revelation of this Parashat as we read it from Sefer Yasher. Hallelujah. And I pray in the Shem of Yeshua that his HaRuachEliyahu would touch you. If this is the first time, praise Yah, Amen. I pray that this is the first time you're watching. Thank you for watching us. You see our information there on the screen to get a hold of us or write us. And let's just, without further delay, let's get right into studying this Parashat. The last part 2, we left off at the end of chapter 75. Now we're going to pursue into 76 and read all the way till we complete and max out where it is in Shemot chapter 6 verse 1. And Moshe the son of Amram was still Melech in the land of Cush in those Yamim, and he prospered in his Malkut, that is his sovereignty, and he conducted the government of the children of Cush in Mishpat, in Zadikah, righteousness and integrity. And all the children of Cush loved Moshe, all the Yamim, that he reigned over them, and all the inhabitants of the land of Cush were greatly afraid of him. And in the 14th year of the reign of Moshe over Cush, Moshe was sitting on the royal throne, while Adoniah the queen was before him. That's the woman that they made him his spouse, but he never had nothing to do with. Remember, as we read in chapter 75, kept himself Kodesh. Hallelujah. When the nobles were sitting around him, and Adoniah the queen said before the Melech and the princes, "What is this thing that you do, the children of Cush, have done for this long time? Surely you know that for 40 years that this man has reigned over Cush, he has not approached me, nor has he served the Elohim of the children of Cush," meaning a false mighty one. "Therefore hear, O you children of Cush, and let this man no more reign over you, as he is not of our flesh." Verse 7, "Behold, men Guras, my son is grown up, let him reign over you. For it is better for you to serve the son of your master than to serve a stranger, slave of the Melech of Misharim." And all the people and nobles of the children of Cush heard the words which Adoniah the queen had spoken in their ears. And all the people were preparing until the evening, and in the morning they rose up early and made Menachos, son of Kikianus, and Melech over them. And all the children of Cush were afraid to stretch forth their hand against Moshe, for Yahuwah was with Moshe, and the children of Cush remembered the oath that they swore to Moshe before they did no harm to him. But the children of Cush gave many presents to Moshe and sent him from them with great honor. So Moshe went forth from the land of Cush and went home and ceased to reign over Cush. And Moshe was 66 years old when he went out of the land of Cush, for the thing was from Yahuwah, for the period had arrived which he had appointed in the Yamim of old, to bring forth Israel from the affliction of the children of Ham. And Moshe went to Midian, for he was afraid to return to Misharim on account of Pharaoh. And he went and sat at a well of Maim in Midian. And the 7 daughters of Reuel the Midianite went out to feed their Abba's flock, and they came to the well and drew Maim to water their Abba's flock. So the shepherds of Midian came and drove them away. And Moshe rose up and helped them and watered the flock. This is a comparison to Shemot, verse 17. And they came home to their Abba Reuel and told him what Moshe did for them. And they said, "A Mizraite man has delivered us from the hands of the shepherds. He drew up Maim for us and watered the flock." And Reuel said to his daughters, "And where is he? why have you left him, the man? And Reuel sent for him and fetched him and brought him home, and he ate bread with him. And Moshe related to Reuel that he had fled from Mizraim, and that he reigned 40 years over Cush, and that they afterward had taken the government from him. And he sent him away in the shalom and with honor, with presents. He kind of like spilled the beans too much here, because Reuel started acting funny with him because of it. Verse 22, and when Reuel had heard the words of Moshe, Reuel said within himself, I will put this man into the prison house, whereby I shall conciliate the children of Cush, and for he has fled from them. And they took and put him into the prison house. And Moshe was in the prison 10 years. And while Moshe was in the prison house, Zipporah, the daughter of Reuel, took pity over him and supported him with bread, ma'im, all the time. He was 76-year-old at this time. He went from Tob to bad to the frying pan to Tob to bad again. And all the children of Israel were yet in the land of Mizraim, serving the Mizrahites in all manner of hard work. And the land of Mizraim continued in severity over the children of Israel in those yamim. At that time, Yahuwah smote Pharaoh, Melech of Mizraim, and he afflicted with the plague of leprosy from the sole of his foot to the keter of his head, owing to the cruel treatment of the children of Israel was this plague at that time from Yahuwah upon Pharaoh, Melech of Mizraim. And Yahuwah had hearkened to the prayer of his people, the children of Israel, and their cry reached him on account of their hard work. Still, his anger did not turn from them, and the hand of Pharaoh was still stretched out against the children of Israel. And Pharaoh hardened his neck before Yahuwah, and he increased his yoke over the children of Israel, and embittered their lives with all manner of hard work. Verse 28, and when Yahuwah had inflicted the plague upon Pharaoh, Melech of Mizraim, he asked his wizards and wise men and sorcerers to cure him. And his wizard and wise men and sorcerers said to him that if the blood of little children were put into the wounds, he would be healed. And Pharaoh hearkened to them and sent his ministers to Goshen to the children of Israel to take their little children. And Pharaoh's ministers went and took the infants of the children of Israel from the bosoms of their mothers by force. And they brought them to Pharaoh daily, and children each young, and the physicians killed them and applied them to the plague. This did they all the yamim. And the number of the children that Pharaoh slew was 375, but Yahuwah hearkened not to the physicians of the Melech of Mizraim, and the plague went on increasing mightily. He used children's blood, like today, aborted children, aborted fetus cells mixed in the food, aborted fetus cells mixed in makeup for the women today of Avon, which means iniquity. Aborted fetus cells mixed in the spray of aluminum in the air. Verse 34, and Pharaoh was 10 years afflicted with that plague. Still the heart of Pharaoh was more hardened against the children of Israel. And at the end of 10 years, Yahuwah continued to afflict Pharaoh with the destructive plagues. And Yahuwah smote him with a bad tumor and sickness at the stomach. And that plague turned to a severe boil. Oh, gross, man. Awful gross. At that time, the two ministers of Pharaoh came before the land of Goshen, where all the children of Israel were, and went to the house of Pharaoh and said to him, we have seen the children of Israel slackened in their work and negligent in their labors. And when Pharaoh heard the words of his ministers, his anger was kindled against the children of Israel exceedingly, for he was greatly grieved at his bodily pain. And he answered and said, now that the children of Israel know that I am ill, they turn and scoff at us. Harness my Merkava for me, and I will take myself to Goshen, and will see the scoffing of the children of Israel with which they are deriding me. And so his servants harnessed his Merkava, his chariot, for him, and they took and made him ride upon a horse, for he was not able to ride for himself. And he took with him 10 horsemen and 10 footmen, and went to the children of Israel to Goshen. And when they had come to the border of Mizraim, the Melech's horse passed into a narrow place, elevated in the hollow part of the vineyard, fenced on both sides, the low plain country being on the other side. And the horses ran rapidly in that place and pressed each other, and the other horses pressed the Melech's horse, and the Melech horse fell into the low plain while the Melech was riding upon it. And when he fell, the Merkava turned over the Melech's face, and the horse lay upon the Melech, and the Melech cried out, for his flesh was very sore. And the flesh of the Melech was torn from him, and his bones were broken, and he could not ride, for this thing was from Yahuwah to him. For Yahuwah had heard the cries of his people, the children of Israel, and their affliction, and his servants carried him upon their shoulders a little at a time, and they brought him back to Mizraim, and the horsemen who were with him came also back to Mizraim, and they placed him in his bed, and the Melech knew that his end has come to die. So Aparanith, the queen, his wife, came and cried before the Melech, and the Melech wept a great weeping with her. And all his nobles and servants came on that yom, and saw the Melech in that affliction, and wept a great weeping with him. And the princes of the Melech and all his counselors advised the Melech to cause one reign in his stead in the land, whomsoever he should choose from his sons. And the Melech had 3 sons and 2 daughters, which Arpaniath, the queen his wife, had borne to him, besides the Melech's children of concubines. And these were their names: the Becher, Athri, the second Adikam, and the third Morion, and their sisters, the name of the Zekinah, Bathia, and of the other Akuzi. And Athri, the Becher of the Melech, was an idiot, precipitate, and hurried in his words. He had stammered speech. 53. But Adikam was a cunning and wise man, knowing in all the wizardry and sorcery of Mizraim, but of unseemly aspect, thick in flesh, and very short in stature. His height was 1 cubit. Guy was a midget, but very intelligent. So he was a Mimi. He was a little midget, smart villain. And when the Melech saw Adikam, his son, intelligent and wiser in all things, the Melech resolved that he should be Melech in his stead after his death. And he took for him a wife, Gedudah, daughter of Avilot, and he was 10 years old. And she bore to him 4 sons. He was smart, intelligent, but a short guy. He was 10 years old. He still had room to grow. 10 years old, you got room to grow. You won't be a midget forever. And he after went and took 3 wives, and begot 8 sons and 3 daughters. And the disorder greatly prevailed over the Melech, and his flesh stank like the flesh of a carcass cast upon the field in summertime. Ooh, gross, man. during the heat of the sun. Ooh, even worse. And when the Melech saw that his sickness had greatly strengthened itself over him, he ordered his son Adikam to be brought to him. And they made him Melech over the land in his place. At the end of 3 years, the Melech died in shame, disgraced and disgust, and his servants carried him and buried him in the sepulchre of the Melechim of Misraim in Zoan Mizraim. And they embalmed him not as was usual with the Melechim, for his flesh was putrid, and they could not approach to embalm him on account of the stench, so they buried him in haste. And this evil was from Yahuwah to him, for Yahuwah had requited him evil for the evil that his Yamim he had done to Israel. And he died with terror and with shame. His son Adikam reigned in his place. Adikam, chapter 77. Adikam was 20 years old when he reigned over Misraim. He reigned 4 years. In the 206th year of Israel, going down to Misraim, did Adikam reign over Misraim. But he continued not so long in his reign over Misraim as his avot had continued their reign. For Melol, his Abba, reigned 94 years in Misraim, but he was 10 years sick and died, for he had been wicked before Yahuwah. And all the Mizrahites called the name of Adikam Pharaoh like the name of his avot, as was their custom to do in Misraim. And all the wizards and wise men and Chaldeans, men of Pharaoh, called the name of Adikim Ahus, for short is called Ahus in the Mizrahite language. Called him Shorty. And Adikam was exceedingly ugly, and he was a cubit and a span. So he grew a span in 12 years, and he had a great beard that reached to the soles of his feet. Now this is Pharaoh's different. He had a great beard all the way down his feet, so he looked like some of those little guys in those Hobbit movies. And Pharaoh sat upon his Abba's throne to reign over Misraim, and he conducted the government of Misraim in his wisdom. And while he reigned, he exceeded his Abba in all proceeding of Melechim in wickedness, and he increased his yoke over the children of Israel. Verse 9, and he went with his servants to Goshen, to the children of Israel, and he strengthened the labor over them, and he said to them, complete your work each Yom's task, and let not your hands slacken from our work with this Yom forward, as you do in the Yamim of my Abba. And he placed officers over them from among the children of Israel, and over these officers he placed taskmasters from among his servants, and he placed over them a measure of bricks for them to do according to their number, Yom by Yom. And he turned back and went to Misraim. At that time the taskmasters of Pharaoh ordered the officers of the children of Israel according to the command of Pharaoh, saying, this says Pharaoh, do your work each Yom, and finish your task, and observe the daily measure of bricks. Diminish not anything. And it shall come to pass that if you are deficient in your daily bricks, I will put your young children in their stead. And the taskmasters of Misraim did so in those Yamim as Pharaoh had ordered them, and whenever any deficiency was found in the children of Israel measure of their daily bricks, the taskmaster of Pharaoh would go to the wives of the children of Israel and take infants of the children of Israel to the number of bricks deficient, and they would take them by force for their emmas from their emma's lap, and put them in the building instead of the bricks. And while their avat and mothers were crying over them and weeping, that when they heard the weeping voices of their infants in the walls of the building, and the taskmasters prevailed over Israel, that the Israelites should place their children in the building, so that a man placed his son in the wall and put mortar over him, while his eyes wept over him, and his tears ran down upon his child. And the taskmasters of Mizraim did so to the babes of Israel for many yamim, and no one pitied or had rakamim, compassionate pity over the babes of the children of Israel. And the number of the children killed in the building was 270, some of whom they had built upon instead of the bricks that had been left deficient by their avot, and some whom they had drawn out dead from the building. And the labor imposed upon the children of Israel in the yamim of Adikam sovereign exceeded in the hardship that which they performed in the yamim of his Abba. And the children of Israel sighed every yom on account of their heavy work, for they had said to themselves, Behold, when Pharaoh shall die, his son will rise up and lighten our work. But they increased the later work more than the former. And the children of Israel sighed at this, and their cry ascended to Eloah on account of their labor. And Eloah heard the voice of the children of Israel and their cry in those yamim. And Eloah remembered to them his covenant that he had made with Abraham, Ishak, and Jacob. And Eloah saw the burden of the children of Israel and their heavy work in those yamim, and he determined to deliver them. So when the blood cries out from the earth, the pity and compassion goes up to Yahuwah to move towards, to fulfill the Nabu'ah act of what's supposed to be fulfilled, to raise the mighty arm of Moshe and get him out of Mizraim. Verse 26. And Moshe, the son of Amram, was still confined in the dungeon in those yamim, in the house of Reuel the Midianite. And Zipporah, the daughter of Reuel, did support him with food secretly yom by yom. And Moshe was confined in the dungeon in the house of Reuel 10 years. You add 10 more years. All right. This is awesome too. What's going to happen at the end of 10 years? That was the first year of the reign of Pharaoh over Mizraim. In the place of his Abba, Zipporah said to her Abba Reuel, No person inquires or seeks after the Hebrew man, whom you did bind in prison now 10 years. Now therefore, if it seem tov in your sight, let us send and see whether he is living or dead. But her Abba knew not that she had supported him. Reuel, her Abba, answered and said to her, Has ever such a thing happened, that a man should be shut up in prison without food for 10 years, and that he should live? And Zipporah answered her Abba, saying, Surely you have heard that the Eloah of the Hebrew is great and awesome, and does wonders for them at all times. He is also who delivered Abraham from Ur of the Chaldeans, and Ishak from the sword of his Abba, Jacob from the Malak of Yahuwah, who wrestled with him at the ford of Yavok. Also with this man has he done many things. He delivered him from the river in Mizraim, from the sword of Pharaoh, and from the children of Cush. So also can he deliver him from famine and make him live. And the thing seemed tov in the sight of Reuel, and he did according to the word of his daughter, and sent to the dungeon to ascertain what became of Moshe. And he saw, and behold, the man Moshe was living in the dungeon, standing on his feet, praising and praying to the Eloah of his ancestors. And Ru'el commanded Moshe to be brought out of the dungeon. So they shaved him, and he changed his prison garments and ate bread. And afterward Moshe went into the game, which is the garden of Ru'el, that was behind the house. And he there prayed to Yahuwah his Eloah, who had done mighty wonders for him. And it was that while he prayed, he looked in the opposite to him, and behold, a sapphire stick was placed in the ground, which was planted in the midst of the garden. So he had a garden and a greenhouse. In the midst of it was a staff, all right? And everything grew green, beautiful, because of the staff. And he saw this sapphire stick that was placed in the ground, which was planted in the midst of the garden. And he approached the stick and looked, and behold, the name of Yahuwah Eloah of hosts was engraved thereon, written and developed upon the stick. The name was developed upon the stick, and he read it and stretched forth his hand, and he plucked it like a forced weed or seed from the thicket, and the stick was in his hand. And this is the stick with which all the works of our Eloah were performed after he had created the Shamayim and earth, and all the host of them, seas, rivers, and all their fishes. This is the staff. This is the stick that was given to Adam, and from Adam to Noach, and from Noach, and passing on all the way to Abraham, Ishak, and Yaakov. And Yaakov gave it to Yosef, and it was in his palace when he died, and they kept it in a monumental place, like a museum. And we know the story that it was taken by Ru'el, we heard in the former chapters. And this is the stick with which all the works of Eloah were performed after he had created the Shamayim, the earth, and all the host of them, seas, rivers, and all their fishes. And when Eloah had driven Adam from the Gan Adin, he took the stick of his hand and went and tilled the ground from which he was taken. And the stick came down to Noach and was given to Shem and his descendants until it came into the hand of Abraham the Ibri. And when Abraham had given all he had to his sons of Ishak, he also gave to him this stick. And when Yaakov had fled to Paddan Aram, he took it into his hand, and when he returned to his Abba, he had not left it behind him. Also, when he went down to Mizraim, he took it into his hand and gave it to Yosef, one portion above his brother. For Yaakov had taken it by force from his brother Esau. So this was the inheritance stick, and he took it by force from Esau. And after the death of Yosef, the nobles of Mizraim came into the house of Yosef, and the stick came into the hand of Ru'el the Midianite. And when he went out of Mizraim, he took it in his hand and planted it in the Gadin garden. So remember, Raug was one of the counselors. He wasn't a wizard or sorcerer, he was a counselor. And he gave a report to stay away, leave these Israelites alone, the sons of Abraham, Ishak, Yaakov. He didn't listen to him, he got mad, called him all kinds of names, and he some way out slipped out with a stick and left Egypt. Okay, Mizraim. And all the mighty men of the Kenitites tried to pluck it when they endeavored to get Zipporah, his daughter, but they were unsuccessful. So he made like a challenge. You want my daughter for a wife? The man that can take the stick can have Zipporah, my beautiful young daughter. Okay? And nobody could do it. But they were unsuccessful. Verse 50. And that stick remained planted in the gain of Reuel until he came who had right to it and took it. You hear that? When he stuck it in the ground, it froze. Reuel couldn't do nothing about it. But he grew his garden real beautiful. Okay? In the greenhouse, dome, flat earth. And here comes Moshe, just plucks it up. And Reuel saw the stick in the hand of Moshe. He wondered about it, and he gave him his daughter Zipporah for a wife. He is 77, all right? A very special number. Chapter 78, because remember he was in the prison for 10 years. And at that time died Canaan, son of Akobor, Melech of Edom, and was buried in his house in the land of Edom. And after his death, the children of Esau sent to the land of Edom and took from there a man who was in Edom. He was a red man, and whose name was Adad. And they made him Melech over them in the place of Baal Canaan, their Melech. And Hadad reigned over the children of Edom. So he worshipped that false mighty one 48 years. And when he reigned, he resolved to fight against the children of Moab, to bring them under the power of the children of Esau as they were before. But he was not able, because the children of Moab heard this thing, and they rose up and hurried to elect a Melech over them from among their brothers. And he afterward gathered together a great people and sent to the children of Ammon, their brothers, for help to fight against Adad, Melech of Edom. And you know where Edom and Ammon is. Ammon is Jordan. Ammon. Okay, Edom. Verse 6, and Hadad heard the thing that the children of Moab had done, and was greatly afraid of them, and refrained from fighting against them. In those Yamim, Moshe, the son of Amram, in the Midian, took Zipporah, the daughter of Reuel, the Midianite, for a wife. And Zipporah walked in the halakot of the daughters of Jacob. She was nothing short of a Zadokah of Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah. See, she fed him in the prison and visited him and hung out with him, feeding him, talking with him. He told him the whole story of his ancestors and of his Abba, Abraham, Ishak, Jacob. Told her the stories of Abaya, the Aloha of Israel, Yahuwah, and she got full of emunah and got converted by his Torah, his speaking forth to her. So he mentored her and spoke to her before he took her 10 years, for 10 years, while she was visiting him and feeding him, falling in love. They became friends and a mentor first. Then she was given to wife, because he plucked that staff out of the ground and no one else could do it. So he won her, and so she was, man, let's read it again. She was nothing short of a Zedekah of Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah. Zipporah conceived and bore a son, and he called his name Gershom. And you know what Gershom means. It's a ger, Gershom. It's a stranger, like living in a land, but you're an illegal alien, but you got papers to stay there, but you're not a legal citizen to vote. For he said, I was a stranger in a foreign land, but he circumcised not his foreskin at the command of Reuel, his Abba-in-law. So Reuel, his Abba, knew the covenant of the shedding of the foreskin, but he didn't obey him, all right, for this son. And she conceived again and bore a son, but circumcised his foreskin and called his name Eliezer. For Moshe said, because the Aloha of my Avot was my help and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. And Pharaoh, Melech of Mitzrayim, greatly increased the labor of the children of Israel in those Yamim, and continued to make his yoke heavier upon the children of Israel. And he ordered a proclamation to be made in Mitzrayim, saying, give no more straw to the people to make bricks with, let them go and gather themselves straw as they can find it. Verse 13. Also the amount of brick which they shall make, let them give each yom, diminish nothing from them, for they are idle in their work. And the children of Israel heard this, and they mourned and sighed, and they cried to Yahuwah on account of the bitterness of their beings. And Yahuwah heard the cries of the children of Israel, and saw the oppression with which the Mizrahites oppressed them. And Yahuwah was zealous for his people, his inheritance, and heard their voice, and he resolved to take them out of the affliction of the Mizrahites, to give them the land of Canaan for a possession. Chapter 79. In those Yamim, Moshe was feeding the flock of Ra'el, the Midianite, his Abba-in-law, beyond the wilderness of Sin, and the stick which he took from his Abba-in-law was in his hand. And it came to pass one yom that a kid of goats strayed from the flock, and Moshe pursued it, and he came to the mountain of Eloah, to Hoab. And when he came to Hoab, Yahuwah appeared there to him in the bush, and he found the bush burning with fire, but the fire had no power over the bush to consume it. And Moshe was greatly astonished at this sight, why the bush was not consumed. And he approached to see this mighty thing. And Yahuwah was called to Moshe out of the fire, and commanded him to go down to Mitzrayim, to Pharaoh Melech of Mitzrayim, to send the children of Israel from his service. Verse 5. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, go, return to Mitzrayim, for all those men who sought for your high are dead, and you shall speak to Pharaoh to send forth the children of Israel from his land. Now, remember, they thought he was dead. The Malak cut off the head of the captain and made the captain guard face look like Moshe, and took on the appearance of the captain. And so they thought Moshe was dead. All right, and all those people who were in the court at that time are all dead and wiped out. So there's no one to recognize him, even with his age. And Yahuwah showed him to do signs and wonders in Mitzrayim before the eyes of Pharaoh and the eyes of his subjects, in order that they might believe that Yahuwah has sent him. And this is in concordance or in parallel with Shemot 4:9. Verse 7. And Moshe hearkened to all that Yahuwah had commanded him, and he returned to his Abba-in-law, and told him the thing that, and Ra'ul said to him, go in shalom. And Moshe rose up to go to Mitzrayim, and he took his wife and his sons with him, and he was at an inn in the road. And Amalek of Aloha came down and sought an occasion against him, and he wished to kill him on account of his Becher son, because he is firstborn, because he had not circumcised him, and had transgressed the covenant which Yahuwah had made with Abraham. And that's according to Exodus chapter 4, 24 through 26. Or Shemot, Perek 4, Pasuk 24, Pasuk 26. For Moshe had hearkened to the words of his Abba, that he had spoken to him not to Brit Milah, his Becher's son. Therefore he circumcised him not. He didn't hearken to him. As Zipporah saw the Melech of Yahuwah seeking an occasion against Moshe, and she knew that the thing was going owing to his not having circumcised her son Gershon. That's a symbol there, though. He wasn't circumcised. Just like many are Ger and Gershon, or Gershomites, scattered throughout the world, the flat earth. They're all scattered around of the Olam. And so they need to be under covenant of Abraham as well. Verse 12. Zipporah hurried and took the sharp rock stones that were there, and she circumcised her son, and delivered her husband and her son from the hand of the Malak of Yahuwah. And Aaron, the son of Imran, the brother of Moshe, was in Mitzrayim, walking at the riverside on that yom. And Yahuwah appeared to him in that place, and he said to him, Go now toward Moshe in the wilderness. And he went and met him in the mountain of Aloha, and he kissed him. And Aaron lifted up his eyes and saw Zipporah, his wife, of Moshe and her children. And he said to Moshe, Who are these to you? And Moshe said to him, They are my wife and sons, whom Aloha gave to me in Midian. And the thing grieved Aaron on account of the woman and her children. He didn't want them to go to what's going on in Misraim with the slavery and the murder of children. He didn't want that to happen. So he gave advice to his brother. And Aaron said to Moshe, Send away the woman and her children, that they may go to her Abba's house. And Moshe hearkened to the words of Aaron and did so. He didn't want them to be getting a run-in Egypt, what's going on. And Zipporah returned with her children, and they went to the house of Reuel and remained there until the time arrived when Yahuwah had visited his people and brought them forth from Misraim, from the hand of Pharaoh. Verse 19, And Moshe and Aaron came to Misraim, to the community of the children of Israel, and they spoke to them all the words of Yahuwah, and the people rejoiced, or should we say, Gelah, G-I-L-A-H, Gelah, an exceeding great rejoicing, Gelah. And Moshe and Aaron rose up early in the next Yom. Now this is found in Shemot 4, verse 30 through 31. And they went to the house of Pharaoh, and they took in their hands the rod of Aloha. Verse 21. And when they came to the Melech's gate, 2 young lions were confined there with iron instruments, and no person went out or came in from before them, unless those whom the Melech ordered to come in. When the conjurers came, the wizards and Chaldean wizards, we drew the lions by their incantations, and this brought them to the Melech. And Moshe hurried and lifted up the stick upon the lions, and he loosed them. And Moshe and Aaron came into the Melech's house on their own. The lions, now check this out, this is all. The lions also came with them in Gelah. And they followed them and rejoiced as a dog Gelah, or Simcha, over his master when he comes from the field. So they started acting like a dog and their master with Moshe and Aaron. This is totally awesome. And they follow them, rejoicing as a dog rejoices over his master when he comes from the field. And when Pharaoh saw this thing, he was astonished at it, and he was greatly terrified at the report, for their appearance was like the appearance of the children of Aloha, mighty one. Verse 25, and Pharaoh said to Moshe, What do you require? And they answered him, saying, Yahuwah Aloha of the Ibrim has sent us to you, to say, Send forth my people, that they may serve me. And when Pharaoh heard their words, he was greatly terrified before them. And he said to them, Go today and come back tomorrow, and come back to me tomorrow. And they did according to the word of the Melech. And when they had gone, Pharaoh sent forth Balaam, the magic magician wizard, and to Yanis and Yambers, his sons, and to all the magicians and conjurers and counselors which belonged to the Melech. And they all came and sat before the Melech. He was scared. Balaam was scared of Moshe. And he knew he's still alive. Okay? Because he seen him over there when he became the Melech of Shittim. Okay? Verse 28. And the Melech told them all the words which Moshe and his brother Aaron had spoken to him. And the magician said to the Melech, But how came the men to you on account of the lions which are confined at the gate? And the Melech said, Because they lifted up their rod against the lions and loosed them and came to me. And the lions also rejoiced at them, as a dog rejoices to meet his master. And Balaam the son of Beor, the magician, answered the Melech, saying, These are none else than magicians like yourselves. Now therefore, send for them, and let them come, and we will try them. And the Melech did so. He said they're Chaldean wizards. That's what they thought. And in the morning, Pharaoh sent for Moshe and Aaron to come before the Melech, and they took the rod of Aloha and came to the Melech and spoke to him, saying, This said Yahuwah Aloha of the Ibrim, send my people, that they may serve me. Let my people go. And the Melech said to them, But who will believe you that you are the messengers of Aloha, that you come to me by his order? Now therefore give a wonder or a sign in this matter. Then the words that you speak will be believed. And Aaron hurried and threw the rod out of his hand before Pharaoh and before his servants, and the rod turned into a serpent. And the sorcerers saw this, and they cast each man his rod upon the ground, and they became serpents. This is Balaam's 2 sons. And the serpent of Aaron rod lifted up its head and opened its mouth. It swallowed the rods of the magicians. And Balaam the magicians answered and said, This thing has been done. This thing has been from the Yamim of old, that a serpent should swallow its fellow, and that the living things devour each other. Now therefore restore it to a rod as it was at first, and we will also restore our rods as they were at first. And if your rod shall swallow our rods, then shall we know that the Ruach of Eloha is in you. And if not, you are only artificer like us, a Chaldean wizard, worker of mysterious arts. And Aaron hurried and stretched forth his hand and caught hold of the serpent's tail, and it became a rod in his hand. And the sorcerers did like with their rods, and they got hold of each man of the tail of the serpent, and they became rods as at first. And when they were restored to rods, the rod of Aaron swallowed up their rods. And when the Melech saw the thing, he ordered the scroll of the records that related to the Melechim of Misraim to be brought. And they brought the scroll of records, the chronicles of the Melechim of Misraim, in which all the idols of Misraim were inscribed. For they thought of finding in it the Shem of Yahuwah, but they found it not. They did Yahuwah's Shem not in Misraim. And Pharaoh said to Moshe and Aaron, Behold, I have not found the Shem of your Aloha written in this scroll, and his name I know not. Now, from verse 45 is like Shemot, Exodus chapter 5:2. And the counselors and the wizards and wise men and Chaldeans men answered Amalek, We have heard that the Aloha of the Ibrim is a son of Hokmah, the son of an ancient Melechim, an ancient one. And Pharaoh turned to Moshe and Aaron and said to them, I know not Yahuwah you have declared, neither will I send his people. And they answered and said to the Melech, Yahuwah Aloha of Aloha is his Shem, and he proclaimed his name over us from the Yamim of our ancestors, and sent us, saying, Go to Pharaoh and say to him, Send my people that they may serve me. Now therefore send us that we may take a journey for 3 Yamim in the wilderness. There may sacrifice to him, for from the Yamim of our going down to Misraim, he has not taken from our hands either burnt offerings, obligations, or sacrifices. This is Shemot 5:3. And if you will not send us, his anger will be kindled against you, and he will smite the Misraim, either with the plague or with the sword. And Pharaoh said to them, Tell me now his power and his might. And they said to him, He created the Shamaim and the Eretz, and the seas and all their fishes. He formed the light, created the darkness, caused rain upon the earth and watered it, and made the herbage and grass to sprout. He created man and beast and the animals of the forest, the birds of air and the fish of the sea, and by his mouth they live and die. Surely he created you in your Emma's womb, and put into you the breath of high, and reared you and placed you upon the royal throne of Mizraim. And he will take your breath and being from you, and return you to the ground from where you were taken. Verse 51. And the anger of the Melech was kindled at the words, and he said to them, but who among all the Elohim of the nations can do this? My river is my own. I have made it for myself. And he drove them from him, and he ordered the labor upon Israel to be more severe than it was yesterday and before. And Moshe and Aaron went out from the Melech's presence, and they saw the children of Israel in an evil condition, and the taskmasters had made their labors exceedingly heavy. And Moshe returned to Yahuwah and said, why have you ill-treated your people? For since now this is chapter 5, verse 22 to 23 of Exodus, that's Shemot. And to speak to Pharaoh what you did send me, for he has exceedingly ill used the children of Israel. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, behold, you will see that with an outstretched hand and a heavy plagues, Pharaoh will send the children of Israel from his hand. And Moshe and Aaron dwelt among the brothers, the children of Israel, in Mizraim. And as for the children of Israel, the Mizraimites embittered their lives with the heavy work that they imposed upon them. So this concludes chapter 79 of the completion, right next to, in comparison to Exodus Shemot, Perek 6, Pasuk 1, because that's where it ends in the Parashat Shemot, and then we'll continue in a few days to the next Parashat, which continues the story in Perek chapter 80. Praise Yahuwah, hallelujah. Isn't this awesome? This is an awesome Parashat. I mean, this story is awesome, what we're witnessing here. The details of information, the information that's going on about the staff and the details, and how old was Moshe at the time. So here we go, and this is a wonderful Moshe story based on Sefer Yasher, comparison side by side with Shemot. If you put your Torah together to read it together, you can compare together what we're reading. Thank you for having me to come into your home. Remember, if you write me at eaglesaveministry@yahoo.com, email me and request either the printed hard copy or a PDF or PowerPoint studies to teach people in your own house and teach others wherever you go with your computer. You can email me, request this, or you can request a hard copy or any of my wife's music. As you see there, eaglesaveministry@yahoo.com. You can also go to our eaglesaveministry.com and look at the front page of the website and look at the bottom right side, and you'll see some of the PDF files there. Most, about 80%, what I'll send you will be there too. But if you have problems with it, you can email me and request it, and I will email you back. If you do request any request, please give me your full name and address, okay? If to mail it to you physically, or if you want it emailed to you, give me the thorough information. Praise Yahuwah, hallelujah. Thank you for having me. I appreciate this. This is an awesome parashat, and I appreciate this great opportunity to come to your home. Amen, amen, amen.